Okay, so today we're going to create a multi-view drawing of a piece called the saddle bracket in AutoCAD. This is a piece that is one of my freshman projects and one that my students wanted a tutorial video on, so that's why we're creating it today. But this is a nice, simple, but a little more than simple, maybe a little complex part where you can learn how to make some multi-view drawings for it. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take that off my screen, and I'm going to show you the approach I would take. It may be a little bit different than some tutorial packages, AutoCAD tutorial packages, or how some CAD operators may teach it. But I like this way because it's very similar to the way that it used to be drawn on the board, which is kind of the appeal of the 2D package of AutoCAD to me. So the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you have your layers set up properly. And for this exercise, I'm just going to show some basic view creation, so some construction lines and object lines. So what we're going to do, and I didn't actually tell you what I was doing up there, is we're going to go up to Layer Properties. We're going to click it. Then we're going to right-click in the gray here, hit New Layer, and then probably my first layer is going to be called something like Construction. Okay, and then what I can do is I can click this line weight, and there's a default line weight, etc. For now, I'll just leave it at the default and hit OK. And then what I also like to do for construction, because they're a little bit, they're construction lines, they're the lines we're creating to figure out where our object lines need to go and where we can snap to. I really like to make them like a nice light gray. You can even go with a nice darker gray, and all I did was just click on this little box right here, and then I picked gray. And you can put it whatever color you want. It really doesn't matter, because if you were to print it, you would export it out in grayscale anyways. Then the other thing I would do is hit New Layer again, and I'm going to make one called Object. Now, in addition to that, I would also, and for my object, I'll make it a nice dark color like blue, and hit OK. In addition to that, you may want to create like a center line, phantom line, and any other lines that you need in your drawing. So now that I have that, I can X out of there, and you can see right up here in this layers section, I can hit my pull down and switch to different layers. This is really handy, and the reason you're going to use layers if you haven't used them before is so you can turn off ones that you don't want to see anymore with this little light bulb here. Turn the lights off on it, and then turn things on depending on how you need them. So I'm going to go to my construction line, and if you accidentally create a line and say, oh no, I wanted that to be an object line, what am I going to do? Make sure you're not in a command. Click the line, it's okay. It'll highlight the line, and then just go up here and switch a layer. If I want that to be an object line, I pick object. Now it's added it to the object layer. Okay. There's also other features up here where you can select a number of them at a time, but I find this way is the quickest for me. So I'm going to get rid of my line here. And when you're creating construction lines, for those of you that haven't drawn on a board, this is how I originally learned how to make drawings and things, is by drafting in theory on the board. So I like to kind of reference that as much as possible for my students. But construction lines are kind of these big long lines that you're then going to draw very lightly, and then you'll draw darker lines where your object lines are located. So with construction, I'm then going to go up to draw. Now if you don't have these bars here, which is a wonderful feature that they automatically turn off in AutoCAD, hit this little arrow up near the A here, a little arrow with a line over the top of it, and it would normally say show menu bar here. So when I click that, it gives me all those nice handy pull downs that aren't on by default. And the other nice thing about this is it also gives you access to the tools toolbars. You notice I have my object snap toolbar here. Super, super handy. If you have watched my other videos, you probably turned this on in the last video I made in AutoCAD. But for now, let's just go up to draw construction line. All right, and then what I like to do if I'm not making something with a border and stuff, we're just going through a making views exercise here, is I like to start at 0. So I'll go 0, comma, 0, enter. Now look at my line, and you can see the point of my line is there, but since it's an infinite line, anywhere else I click is just going to tell it the orientation. Now the other thing I like to do, go down to ortho mode, turn that on. Now I can only make vertical and horizontal lines. And I'm basically going to create a 0, 0 origin, sort of simulating from like a parametric modeling program, simulating the datum planes crisscrossing in my sketch. So I'm going to make a horizontal one and click, and then nice handy object snap. I'm going to click back to that 0, and then I'm going to make one that goes up and down and click, and then I'll hit escape. Now I have my 0, 0, and I can start creating my sketch. Now my first sketch, and I'm going to use my little pencil here to hopefully be able to draw something kind of nice. My first sketch looks like this. It goes up, over, down, over here, up, makes a little U shape there, then it comes all the way over, and it doesn't stop here. It's going to go all the way over, and I'm just simulating to the end of that radius and then back. So I'll have to do some math to find that radius, it looks like. So if I move this back, I'm first, well, maybe I shouldn't move it yet. I'm first going to figure out my overall box, or the outside of my view, so I know the biggest my view is going to be. Now I can see the height right here, 1.75, right? But 3.25 right here, but that only gets me to the center here. So I have to figure out what's the radius, because that'll bring me from the center right here out to this outside point out here that lines up with this line. So I have to figure out my radius. It doesn't give me any, it's not really obvious. There's not a radius dimension off here. So I got to do a little bit of logic here and think, okay, the diameter of this thing, since these are tangent, there's tangent points here, the diameter of this thing is the full width of the part. So do I have a width? Or a depth, I should say. I do right here, 2.5. So that's my diameter of this curve. So what I'm going to do, a diameter is the full length across the circle. I need half from the center to the outside. Cut that in half, 1.25. Add that to 3.25, 4.5. 1.25 plus 3.25 is 4.5. So 1.75 by 4.5 is my box here. So from here, what I like to do is I like to go O, enter for offset, and then let's start with the height, 1.75. And I'm going to take this line and I'm going to go up 1.75. Now I'm going to hit space bar and hit it again, and I'm going to type in that other number, 4.5. And I'm going to offset this over. Okay? Now from here, I've got the overall box in my first view. Okay, so if I want to, I could go through and create that front view right now. Or I could go up and create the view from my top view, or my side views, or my bottom views, or my left side view, depending on what I think the best views are. For the interest of this exercise, what I've asked the students to do is to create the views they think are necessary to completely define this object. So for me, if I look at this part, most valuable views I see are going to be this front and then the top one, because that's going to give me a whole bunch of different surfaces here. It's going to show the edges in between. It'll give me my depth, and I can locate this hole. That's the big one that really drives wanting that top one. So if I want to create that, then maybe what I want to do, hit space bar again, hit space bar again. That's repeat last command, if you don't already know that. And I have to figure out my spacing between my views. So I'm going to go 1 and hit enter. I'm going to offset this up. And then I'm going to, and just so you know, if you don't want to keep hitting spacebar and repeating it, when you click a line, it'll also give you a dimension. So if I move my direction, or I move my cursor in the right direction, I type in 2.5, which is my depth, and hit enter, you'll see it offsets 2.5. So from here, I've got the overall placeholders of my two views. So then what I like to do, switch back to object mode. Let's hit escape and get out of that offset. And then I'm going to create a line. So L, enter, or you can click line. I really like typing. If you get the handle of typing, it saves you a lot of time. So then down here, I'm going to make sure my object snap is on, because that was the point of these construction views. Now I have all these nice little vertexes, these intersection points that I can snap to. So I'm going to trace out the outside of my view. Click, 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 click. Okay, and I'm going to show you just by offsetting object lines how I would create the front view. For the top view, I'll show you how to do it with construction lines. Either way is totally fine, completely up to you how you want to handle it. Okay, so now what I can do for my front view, I need to find a few other lines I'm going to need. So I'm going to need, this thing's going to be shaped like what I have drawn here. And then I also, it's a little hard to see, but I have a little hidden line that's going to show up in here. So maybe we'll need to create a little hidden line. Ooh, kind of setting it with me there. A hidden line layer. Well, there's another hidden line right here. Take my word for it. All right, so first, I'm going to offset upward from the bottom, 0.5. 0.5, click, up. Okay. Then my next line up, the one that creates that little U shape, is 0.75, so I'm going to click this, up, 0.75. And that's all of my height lines. Well, let me make sure that's true. Well, I do have one down from 0.75, but that's my hidden line. We'll create that last. Okay. So then from here, I need to offset over. So this one's going to go over 0.5. This one's going to go over, I got to do a little math here. I have 0.5 here, 0.5 here, and 2 overall, which means this is 1. 2 minus 0.5 is 1.5, minus another 0.5 is 1. So this number is going to be 1, and then I'm going to offset this over another 0.5. And now all I have left to do is trim. So I'm going to go TR for trim, hit enter. Let's make it easy. Let's select everything. Hit spacebar. Now I'm going to get rid of what I don't need. So I don't need that. I don't need that. Don't need that. Don't need that. Don't need this. 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 And this one. Got a little left over there. Get rid of that. Okay, and there's my outside shape. Now if I turn off the construction line, look at that, there's my view. Okay, now I'm going to go up to layer properties. I'm going to right click, new layer. Let's create that hidden layer. We'll make it a completely different color. Let's make it like pink and hit OK. And then we'll click our line type. I'm going to load a different line type, and I'm going to find, scroll down far enough, I think there's actually a hidden, and hit OK. I'm going to select it, and I'm going to hit OK. And you can see it adds hidden as the line type right up here. So now I close out. I'm going to offset a few lines down, and then I'll just change them to that hidden. So we can see it goes down 0.75 here and over here. So I'm going to say 0.75, this down, this down. Then I can go ahead, hit escape, select both of them, come up here, switch them to my hidden style. And you can see there's my hidden line. Now if you want your hidden line to be a little more dense, you could type in LT scale and hit enter. My scale is currently 1, so if I wanted twice as many dashes, 0.5. Look at that. Shrinks it down. Okay, so that's how I'm going to create my bottom view, I also actually need a few lines for my 1-inch hole in the middle. So I know that the center of that is 3.25 to here, and then there's another 1.25 here. Okay, now I can do a little math. All right, so I could go 3.25 plus 0.5, which would be the radius, 3.75, or minus 0.5, 2.75. So I can do this. Offset, 2.75. Click my line, move over. Okay, and then if I want to, I can just click this over, type 1, because I know it's 1 inch wide. Now I trim, after I hit escape, pick all this stuff, get rid of the top, hit spacebar or escape to get out of there, pick both these lines, let's make them hidden. Look at that. Now we've got my front view done. Now for the top view, the other way we can do this is we can create all of our guidelines and then actually draw them object and hidden depending on what we need. So for the top, I'm going to need a few different construction lines. Now if you do it the way I did at the bottom, you could just pick this. Gotta switch it to construction. I could draw a construction line. I could just pick on lines and start projecting them up like this. That's a really good method to do. You don't have to do a whole lot of math that way. Or I can offset these lines over and then draw over them. All right, I kind of like projecting because that's what we actually want to do. So I'm going to do, accidentally placed that in the wrong place. So let's try this again. Draw construction line. Make sure my ortho's on. And then I'm going to go up, click. Same with this one. Same with this one. And then I'll worry about placing that center line afterwards. Now from here I can trace out my view. Object line, create a line. I'll enter. Click, 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 and back. Hit spacebar, hit spacebar again. And then I'm just connecting intersections. Okay. And then from here, I just need to figure out the width of my two pillars here. So I have 0.5 and 1.5. Or I could just do the math and say both of them are 0.5. So I'm going to go O for offset, 0.5. I'm going to offset the top one down, bottom one up. Okay, and then I can go through and trim these again. TR, enter. I'll just select everything, get rid of this, get rid of that one, this inside part, and this inside part. Okay, and that gives me the location of those. Now to figure out where the hole is, if I look at this dimension, 3.25 over, and I know it's halfway across, so 2.5 divided by 2, 1.25. So I'm going to create some guidelines here. I'm going to offset 1.5 or 1.25. I'm going to pick this line here, and I'm going to offset it up because that's my construction line. And then I'm going to offset this one over here over 3.25. Place that there. There's the center of my circle. Now I can create a circle, click the middle, and the radius is 0.5. Then I can also click the middle and drag that radius right out to the edge here, because I know it's the full width, it's tangent to these outside lines. Then all I have to do, trim, select all this stuff, get rid of this, get rid of that, this, and this, hit spacebar or escape, and then I can just hit this and delete it. Alright, now I need to identify if there's any hidden lines. So if I look at the top of this, I can see every single edge on this part. So I don't need any hidden lines. However, I can come up here and go to my construction, turn the light off, and look at that. There's my multi-view drawing of this saddle bracket. So this is one way to complete this, or one way to create it. There's a number of different ways. This is the way I like to use construction lines. In future lessons, we'll start putting dimensions and things like that.